This video, we are going to be focusing on a period of history known as the Progressive Era to some, or the Gilded Age to others. We're also going to be focusing on the Wisconsin idea, various political reforms including the 16th and 17th Amendment, the spoils system and patronage. We're going to be talking a little bit about President James Garfield, the Civil Service Commission, the Interstate Commerce Act, and the Sherman Antitrust Act. So make sure you're taking notes. So we've been talking a lot about the social aspects of American history, but we're going to take this video to focus a little bit more on the political aspects of history, and we're going to be talking a lot about government and different government reforms or political reforms that were taking place. So the Progressive Era is a period of time in American history from 1898 to 1917 in which reformers wanted to improve American life. Now this takes place in both the social aspect of it and also the political aspect of it. It's also known as the Gilded Age because when you think of the term gilded, gilded usually means golden, but it's not necessarily real gold. So for example, if I were to take a pen that appears to be golden and I called it gilded, it could look like it's gold or full gold, but it's really not because I just dipped it in gold. So the outside is gold, but the inside of it is something different. So when you think of the term the Gilded Age when describing the US, it was almost like everything appeared great from the outside, but within something was very wrong. In order to fix the things that were wrong with the U.S., you had multiple reforms that were taking place. One of them had to do with the governor of Wisconsin battling Bob, and it becomes known as the Wisconsin idea. So basically, things that he starts doing includes lowering the railroad rates and primary elections. Primary elections is something huge, it's something that we still have today, and it started because of the governor of Wisconsin. So we're just coming out of an election year, so primaries should be somewhat fresh in your minds. But basically, primaries allow voters to choose from their party's candidate from a variety of people. So the Democrats already had Barack Obama because he is president, but the Republicans needed to select someone to go up against him. So you can see all the pictures of the different people that wanted to be the Republican nomination, but of course we know that Mitt Romney is the one that actually won the ticket. Now, next election in 2016, the Democrats are going to have a primary. So you're going to have a few different Democrats running as well as Republicans, and the Democrats are going to have their primaries, and then so are the Republicans. Another reform that took place during this time has to do with actually putting the issues on the voter ballot for people, everyday citizens, to vote on to pass something into law. So when you think of this past election, the big ones, of course, was the legalization of marijuana in Colorado and Washington, and then you also had the passage of gay marriage in Maryland and Maine. And these referendums gives voters the power, like I mentioned before, to make a bill into a law. It also allows voters or everyday citizens like you and I to recall an elected official from office. So you could actually put on there something that says, do you want so-and-so to step down from their position? And then if enough people vote, then they will no longer be governor or senator or whatever it is that the person, whatever position the person holds. But that is also a political reform that took place during the Progressive Era or the Gilded Age. The passage of the 16th Amendment allows Congress to impose an income tax. So basically, when you think of you're getting a paycheck and the government's withdrawing a certain amount of money in taxes, this is the income tax that we are talking about. The 17th Amendment allows voters to directly elect their U.S. senators. Prior to 1913, U.S. senators were chosen by state legislators. Only the House of Representatives were directly voted on by citizens, by the voters. But after the 17th Amendment, also in 1913, voters would get to elect U.S. senators and members of the House of Representatives. So if you were a big supporter or a big fan of the person running for election and they won, very often you would be rewarded with a government job. So that would kind of be an incentive for you to help a certain person get elected, because then you would get a job out of it. So not only were you rewarding supporters with government jobs, but then you were also giving out government jobs as favors to loyal party workers. So this would often lead to corruption, and it led to extremely unqualified people holding government positions that didn't know what they were doing. They were just collecting a paycheck, and they were just there simply because they were doing this as a favor, they were receiving a favor, or they were doing this as a reward for helping someone becoming elected. Since you had unqualified people holding these government positions, very often they would actually steal money. So it was very corrupt. When President James Garfield came into office, he wanted to reform the spoils system. President Garfield believed that if you were going to hold a government job, then it should be based on merit and ability, not your political connections. So you actually had to be qualified to hold the position that it is that you wanted, and not simply because you donated a large sum or you helped someone get elected. Eventually what happens is Garfield is actually assassinated in a train station in DC on his way to a speech by someone who was looking for a government job and couldn't actually get it. A little fun fact for you is President James Garfield was shot twice. The second bullet is what actually ends up killing him. It was located behind his pancreas, but Alexander Graham Bell had actually created a bullet metal detector to try to locate where the bullets could possibly be in someone's body once they were shot. They tried to use that on President Garfield, however they couldn't find it because he was laying on a bed with metal springs, so it was throwing the metal detector off because everything was metal, including the bullet, so they couldn't actually find the bullet, which may have been able to save his life. But President Garfield is assassinated by someone who was looking for a government job, wasn't given one, is angry, ends up shooting him twice. You also, during the progressive era, have the regulation of big businesses. Big businesses, we're talking about those robber barons or captains of industry that we talked about in the beginning of the school year. So you have the Civil Service Commission, which is passed in 1883, which allows jobs to be given to people that take an exam. So they're looking for qualifications. You also have the Interstate Commerce Act, which requires that railroad companies actually publish their shipping rates so they know how much they're going to be charged, and they can't charge you based on whether or not they like you type of deal. Special discounts to their favorite customers was also banned, and this leads to the regulation of the railroad industry, in which they wanted to end unfair business practices. So basically stop favoring certain people and start treating everyone equally. And this was in an effort to try to end the corruption within Congress. And you can see how you have that big fat man who is J.P. Morgan. It's written on his sleeve. He's cutting out the little members of Congress to say, you know, that he's the one that owns it. He's the one that's controlling it and dictating what happens. The Sherman Antitrust Act, we've talked about it before, but here it is again, in which it prohibits trusts or monopolies. So when you're talking about, you know, people like J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, those were men that attempted and were successful in some cases, to create monopolies so that they can make more money. So the Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits that. So you guys have a lot of information, but you should be able to use those notes to answer the following 5 questions. What is the progressive era, and why is it also known as the Gilded Age? What is the Wisconsin idea, and how did it actually impact politics? Think about all those different political reforms. What is the spoils system and patronage, and how did it negatively affect politics? What was President Garfield's role in political reforms? And then what is the Civil Service Commission, Interstate Commerce Act, and the Sherman Antitrust Act? If you're able to answer these questions and your notes are complete, make sure you answer your blog, and I will see you guys tomorrow in class.